Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I worked in hotels for about 8 years after college. I started as a front desk clerk and worked my way up to front desk manager at Grandview Hotel 3 years ago. It's a small place with 45 rooms, but we focus on good service. Most of the time, anyway. The hotel doesn't allow pets except for real service animals with proper paperwork. We make this clear when people book, and it's on our website. The rule exists for good reasons like allergies, property damage, and keeping things peaceful for other guests. That Tuesday morning started normal. I got to work at 7 in the morning to take over from the night shift, checked the reports, and looked at any special requests from guests. Everything seemed routine until she walked through our lobby doors around 10:30 in the morning. The woman looked like she was in her mid-40s with a sharp bob haircut. She wore expensive clothes but seemed angry about something. Behind her, she dragged a small, nervous Chihuahua mix that couldn't have weighed more than 5 pounds. I greeted her and asked how I could help. She told me she was there to check in and gave me her name. When I pulled up her information, I noticed the pet right away and asked to see her service animal paperwork. I explained that I needed it for our records. She got defensive right away and said the dog was her therapy animal and that she didn't need any paperwork. I tried to explain that we actually did need proper papers for all service animals because it was hotel policy and required by law. Her face turned red and she called the requirement ridiculous. She said that the dog was registered as her emotional support animal and that she shouldn't have to prove anything to us. I stayed patient and explained that emotional support animals weren't the same as service animals under the law. I told her that without proper paperwork, we couldn't allow pets. She got furious and said that she wasn't leaving. She said she had made the reservation months ago and wasn't going anywhere. She told me that the dog went where she went, and that was final. The situation was getting worse quickly. Other guests in the lobby started to stare, and the little dog began shaking from all the tension. I called my manager over to help. My manager came over and listened to Karen's loud demands. He decided to allow the dog to stay because he wanted to avoid a bigger scene and bad reviews. I disagreed with the choice, but it wasn't my decision to make. The first 2 days of her stay went by without problems. I thought we had avoided trouble. Then Wednesday afternoon happened. I was helping another guest with directions to a local restaurant when Karen burst through the lobby doors. Her face was purple with anger, and she was dragging poor Princess behind her. She screamed that our disgusting hotel had hurt her precious dog. I said sorry that she was upset and asked what had happened. She exploded with anger and told me that our dirty carpet had made the dog sick. She said the dog had never had an accident indoors before, but our terrible room had made her go to the bathroom all over the place. I said sorry for the accident and explained that these things happen with pets. I offered to have housekeeping clean the carpet right away. She got even angrier and asked if I thought cleaning would fix the emotional damage we had caused her pet. She demanded full payment for what we had put the dog through. I tried to stay calm and explained that while I understood she was upset, we couldn't be responsible for her pet's accidents. I reminded her that we had made an exception, allowing the dog to stay here in the first place. She got absolutely furious and asked how I dared call it an exception. She said we should be grateful she had come to our hotel. She blamed us for trying to make an innocent animal look bad for the hotel's problems. At this point, our head of housekeeping walked over after hearing the noise from across the lobby. He asked what the problem was. Karen turned her anger toward him and said the problem was that I was trying to blame the dog for the hotel's disgusting conditions. She then made the crazy claim that we had probably sprayed something on the carpet to make the dog sick. The housekeeping manager tried to calm her down and said that we used only pet-safe cleaning products throughout the hotel. He explained that sometimes animals just have accidents when they're in new places. She rejected his explanation completely and said these weren't accidents, but sabotage. She blamed us for running some kind of plan against her and her dog. The claim was so crazy that I couldn't hide my confused look. Why would anyone want to make her dog go to the bathroom on carpet? She caught my look and got even more upset. She told me not to look at her like that and said she knew what I was thinking. She said we were all working together against her. Her voice got louder and higher by the minute. Other guests were openly staring now, some pulling out phones to record. She threatened to destroy the hotel by leaving bad reviews everywhere, telling people how we hurt innocent animals. She promised to make sure we all lost our jobs. That's when my manager showed up, having heard the shouting from his office. He asked what was happening. Karen turned her anger toward him right away and said the staff was trying to cover up how we had made the dog sick. She demanded a full refund, payment for emotional damage, and wanted everyone involved fired right away. My manager tried to be reasonable and said that while he felt bad about her concern for her pet, the hotel couldn't be responsible for natural body functions. He offered to have the carpet cleaned at no charge, but explained that we couldn't offer refunds or payment for this type of problem. That reasonable response was apparently the wrong thing to say. She screamed that we couldn't do this to her and said she knew important people who would have the place shut down. Before anyone could react, she jumped forward and started hitting my manager with her purse while screaming. The little dog, scared by the violence, began barking frantically. Security got there within seconds, pulling Karen away while she continued hitting and making threats. My manager was shaken but not hurt, mostly just shocked by the sudden attack. When security held her back, she continued screaming that we hadn't heard the last of her and that she would ruin all of us. She said we were attacking her when we were clearly the victims. The police got there quickly after we called them. When they put handcuffs on Karen, she continued screaming about plans and lawsuits. Poor Princess was taken by animal control since Karen clearly couldn't care for her while in jail. The officers led her away while she ranted about having all our jobs and how her lawyer would destroy the hotel. She kept yelling that we didn't know who we were messing with. Later, we found out that Karen had been banned from 3 other hotels in the area for similar problems involving false claims and aggressive behavior. She had a pattern of creating problems, then demanding payment when her unreasonable demands weren't met. The assault charges stuck. Karen was found guilty and ordered to pay fines plus take anger management classes. She also got a lifetime ban from our hotel chain. I gotten into the repo business after my buddy from the service hooked me up with his manager. Honestly, after 10 years in the military, 6 in the Marines, then 4 in the Army, I needed something that kept the adrenaline flowing. I bought a little house in Texas after getting out and bounced around a few different jobs before landing this gig. That morning, I was in the office talking to my manager about some paperwork when this young guy stumbled through the door. And I mean stumbled. This kid looked like he'd been hit by a truck. 2 black eyes, arm in a sling, moving like every step hurt. My manager, who we all called Karen, noticed him too. Now Karen was something else. She had all the attitude and no-nonsense approach you'd expect from someone with that name. But she used her powers for good. She ran that repo office like a drill sergeant, but she had a soft spot for military folks and people who'd been wronged. Karen asked what she could do for him. The kid couldn't have been more than 22, looked around nervously before explaining that he needed help getting his car back. He said it got stolen, sort of, but he still had the title and registration. Karen called over her daughter who worked part-time at the office and told her to pour the kid some coffee. Then she settled back in her chair with that look she got when she was about to hear a good story. She told him to start from the beginning and tell her everything. The soldier, let's call him Ben, took a sip of coffee and started talking. Turns out he'd just gotten back from deployment and had been dating this local girl who lived near Fort Hood. Bad idea right there. I've seen too many guys get burned by getting involved with the local dating scene around military bases. Ben explained that before he deployed, he bought this used black Dodge Charger with money he'd saved from his previous deployment. That car was everything to him. He met this girl while he was stationed here, and she was always asking to drive it, but he always said no. Ben went on to explain that when he was getting ready to deploy, this girl kept pestering him about borrowing the car. She wore him down until he finally agreed, but only if she'd take care of his apartment while he was gone. She promised she would. He told us that when he came back for leave, his apartment was spotless. He thought she was keeping her word. He grabbed his car from storage, spent a few days with her, then gave her the keys while he went home to visit family before finishing his deployment. That's where things went sideways. When Ben returned from his deployment for good, his apartment was trashed. Dust everywhere, bedroom torn apart like someone had been looking for something valuable. When he tried calling the girl, she wouldn't answer. Ben said he checked his safe, it was hidden and hadn't been touched. Thank God. He grabbed his spare car key and called a buddy to come with him to her place. Karen was leaning forward now, that dangerous smile starting to spread across her face. Ben continued his story explaining that when they got there, he saw a car in her driveway that he didn't recognize at first. Then he realized it was his Charger. She'd painted it hot pink and put these huge spinning rims on it. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Hot pink Charger with spinners, that was just cruel. Ben said he used his spare key to make sure it was really his car. The lights flashed when he unlocked it. He went to the front door and asked her what happened to his car. The girl told him it was her car now. That's when Ben said 4 big guys came out of the house, one carrying a baseball bat. They dragged him out of the car and beat the hell out of him right there in the driveway. His friend had to pull a gun to get them to back off and get Ben to the hospital. Karen sat there staring at Ben for a long moment after he finished his story. Then she held out her hand and asked for the paperwork. Ben handed over his title and registration. Karen looked it over, then that smile got even wider. She told him she was going to need the girl's phone number. Ben gave it to her, looking confused. Karen handed the phone to her daughter and told her to call the girl. She told her daughter to tell the girl that she met her at one of the clubs downtown and see if she wanted to party that night. I watched Karen's daughter work her magic on the phone. Whatever she said worked, because when she hung up, she was grinning. She told us that the girl would be at the club tonight, driving the pink car. That evening, I parked my tow truck near the club and waited. Sure enough, around 9 p.m., this ridiculous hot pink Charger with massive spinning rims pulled into the parking lot. A girl got out with some friends and headed inside. I gave them 5 minutes to get settled, then moved in. Hooking up the car was smooth as butter. I was already pulling out of the lot when the girl came running out of the club, waving her arms and screaming. Too late. I was gone. The next morning, the phone rang bright and early. An angry girl on the other end yelled that we people had stolen her car and she wanted it back right now. Karen put on her sweetest customer service voice and told the caller that if she had the registration, she could come pick it up anytime. The angry girl said she was calling the cops. Karen told her to please do, then hung up. I happened to be looking out the window and saw a girl standing next to a car in the vacant lot across the street, throwing what looked like a full-blown tantrum. After a minute, she got in the passenger side of the car. Karen looked out the window too, then turned to me with that evil grin. She asked if that was her, and I told her it looked like it. Karen picked up the phone and called the owner of that vacant lot. She told him there was an unauthorized vehicle on his property and asked if he wanted it towed. He said yes. I drove my truck over to the car. 2 women were sitting inside, and when I knocked on the window, they started arguing that they were just waiting for someone. I told them sorry, but they couldn't park there because the owner wanted the car towed. They called me every name in the book while I hooked up their car. When I lifted it partially off the ground, they had to get out. That's when the girl from the club saw Ben walking into our office. She ran toward the building, so I lowered the car and headed back inside. When I got to the office, chaos had erupted. The girl was trying to grab the car keys from Ben while hitting his injured arm. She told him to give her the keys back or she'd call her friends to finish what they started. Karen's daughter had already called the police. I stepped between Ben and the girl and told her to try hitting me and see what happens. She backed off for a second, then tried a different approach. She said she just wanted to get her laptop out for school. Karen looked at Ben, who handed me the keys. I went to get the laptop, but when I tried to hand it to her, she lunged for it so aggressively that it fell to the ground. The girl yelled that I dropped her computer on purpose and said she was suing all of us. That's when the cops showed up. She launched into her sob story about how we'd stolen her car. The officers listened, then turned to Karen and asked if she had any evidence to support our side. Karen asked if they would like to see the security footage. The cops watched the video of the girl punching Ben and making threats. Her face went white as paper. She tried to back toward the door, but the officers stopped her. One police officer told her they needed to talk about the vehicle, those injuries, and who exactly she was planning to send after the young man. She denied everything at first, but the evidence was right there on camera. They arrested her on the spot. Ben got his keys back, and after the cops left, he said he was too embarrassed to drive around in what looked like a Pepto-Bismol advertisement. He said he was trading the thing in for a GTO as soon as possible. A few weeks later, we heard all 4 guys who'd beaten up Ben had been arrested too. Turns out when the police questioned her further, she'd given them all up to try to reduce her own charges. That was the most satisfying repo I ever did. I work in IT and have been putting in 16-hour days for 3 months on a massive project. Our team of 12 decided we deserved a proper night out to celebrate finishing it. A colleague suggested this curry place on the high street that he'd heard good things about. When we walked in on a Saturday night, the place was practically empty. I should have taken that as a warning sign. Only one other table was occupied by a family of 4. The waiter seemed overwhelmed from the moment we sat down, fumbling with menus and taking forever to bring us water. We were all in good spirits though, just happy to be out celebrating. We placed our orders without any problems. Everyone was chatting about weekend plans and joking around about the project we'd just finished. The waiter wrote everything down and disappeared into the kitchen. That's when the waiting began. We sat there for at least 30 minutes watching the clock tick by. People were getting restless, checking their phones, wondering if they'd forgotten about us. Food finally started coming out, but it was completely random. Some people got their starters, while others got main courses instead. About half our group had some kind of food, while the rest of us sat there empty-handed. The waiter came back with news that made everything worse. He told us they were out of several dishes that night. The chicken tikka masala, lamb biryani, and vegetable curry weren't available anymore. I asked what he meant since we'd ordered those 40 minutes ago. He said the kitchen had just told him and apologized. 3 people in our group had ordered those exact dishes. The food that had arrived looked awful. My colleague poked at his curry and said it was stone cold and tasted like they dumped salt all over it. Another teammate tried his starter and immediately pushed it away. He said the chicken was undercooked and showed us by cutting into it. It was pink in the middle. We were all looking around at each other, wondering what kind of place this was. The family at the other table quietly got up and walked straight out, leaving their untouched plates behind without paying. The waiter didn't even try to stop them. I'd had enough. The whole situation was ridiculous. I told the waiter this wasn't working out and suggested we pay £10 per person and call it even. I explained that was fair considering how much food actually came out and what condition it was in. The waiter went to talk to someone in the back. A few minutes later, this older guy in a stained apron came out looking angry. He was clearly the manager or owner. He told us we'd ordered food, so we had to pay full price. He said that's how restaurants work. I explained we didn't get half our order, and what we did get was either cold or couldn't be eaten. I said £10 per person was more than reasonable. He said the bill was £15 each and we weren't leaving until we paid. My teammate, who'd found the undercooked chicken, asked if he was serious. He pointed out the raw chicken again and said we could get food poisoning. The manager said nothing was wrong with the food and we had to pay full price or nobody would leave. Then things got really weird. He walked over to the front door and turned the lock. We all stared at each other. I asked if he'd just locked us in. He said we had to pay what we owed first. Another colleague pulled out his phone and said this was crazy. He threatened to call the police. The manager told him to go ahead and said he'd call them himself. He said we couldn't just eat food and refuse to pay. I told him fine, call them, we'd wait. So there we were, locked in this terrible restaurant with a manager who thought he was running a prison. He made his call and we waited. The whole situation felt unreal. We were just a group of professionals trying to have a nice dinner, and we'd somehow ended up trapped in the worst restaurant experience ever. The police showed up quickly. The manager unlocked the door to let them in. 2 officers walked in looking confused. One asked what the problem was. The manager immediately started talking over everyone, saying we were trying to leave without paying. We explained what had happened, showing them the cold food and pointing out that several people never got their orders. The officer asked if we'd offered to pay something. I said we'd offered £10 per person and explained we thought that was fair. The officers went to talk to the manager privately for a few minutes. We could hear raised voices from the kitchen but couldn't make out what was being said. When they came back, one officer suggested £5 per person to settle everything so everyone could go home. I looked around at my teammates. We'd already been there for over an hour and just wanted to leave. Even the manager looked defeated. I agreed to £5 each. The manager said whatever, just pay and get out. We all threw in our £5 and got out of there as fast as we could. Walking back to our cars, we were laughing about how bizarre the whole thing had been. It became one of those stories we'd tell at work for months. A few weeks later, I walked past that same street and noticed the restaurant had closed down completely. There was a "for lease" sign in the window. If that's how they treated customers, locking them in and serving terrible food, it was only a matter of time before word got around, and nobody would eat there anymore. We ended up going to a pizza place down the street that night instead. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.